I'm excited to share Bill as an exclusive sponsor of the Thrivecast. They have been sponsoring the Thrivecast for so long. Thank you, Bill. Our firm has been using Bill for over a decade now. We actually use it in all of our foundational CFO and controllership engagements. We have to turn all of our clients' financial processes digital, and we do that with Bill. And you can check out some webinars and blogs and even toolkits that I build with Bill to help in your firm. So thank you, Bill, for being a sponsor of the Thrivecast. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Thrivecast. We love to talk about how we run firms, how we work through this profession, how we navigate, just a lot of the ins and outs of things we deal with in the profession. And so we need great guests to help us understand different viewpoints. And I'm very excited to have Rob Brown, CEO of Accounting Influencers Roundtable AIR, which you have probably heard about, an international community of experts. And I've been thankful to be on Rob's podcast before. They put out great content, great community, great networking opportunities. And so they do host speed networking events 4 times a year. Rob speaks. He's on an Accounting Influencers podcast, thought leader, and all of that stuff. So, Rob, welcome to the Thrivecast, man. It's good to have you.
It is wonderful to bring some international perspective to the show.
That's right.
Jason.
Yeah. So
with my foreign accent and all that.
That's right. Where is Nottingham?
Well, your viewers, listeners, audience will recognize Nottingham as the home of Robin Hood. If you stuck a pin right in the middle of the United Kingdom, you would get my house.
Okay. So you're a couple hours north of London.
Yes, pretty much. If you were to drive really, really fast. In actual fact, it takes about 3 or 4 hours to get there on a train or a car because of traffic and everything else. But yeah, if you came to London, I'd give up half a day to come and see you.
Okay. That's awesome. Well, so Rob, weren't you a math teacher?
I am, in full disclosure, not an accountant. I'm part qualified. I was a high school math teacher. So yes, I did that for 8 years. 4 in the UK and 4 in Hong Kong, as a matter of fact, at an international school.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
But actually gave up teaching because I ended up coaching kids to pass tests. That was the game that we were playing. And it wasn't education, unfortunately. And you'll resonate with this, Jason. The stuff we teach kids in schools is often not relevant to real life.
That's true.
Why am I teaching Pythagoras and algebra? And things like that, because the kids rightly said, "Sir, why are we doing this? We're not going to use this in real life." And I had to say, "Yeah, you're right, but you need it to pass the test." And so, yeah, I transitioned out of there and went into training, took a master's in human resources, and thought I'll go into training and development, and fell into teaching technically super smart people, bankers, accountants, lawyers, architects, surveyors, engineers, how to sell themselves, how to communicate, how to network, how to talk to somebody, how to introduce themselves, personal marketing, really, and wrote a book on reputation, how to stand out in your field, how to not sound and look the same as everybody else. And it fascinated me why some accountants get chosen, hired, referred, recommended, and some don't. So that was my world until 2016, where it all crashed down around me and I had a brain hemorrhage, which was really sudden.
Oh, no,
and,
really?
We can talk about it a little more, but my world was recalibrated at that point.
What was that that was just a health issue? Was it a stress related?
No, not at all. I'm a don't smoke, don't drink I taught phys ed and maths as well. So I'm pretty fit, but it was completely random, Jason. I was just getting migraines. It turns out that there were mini bleeds in the brain, and one day my brain went boom. Now I tried the diet and everything else and thought, could it be stress? Am I on screens too much? But I really wasn't. I've looked after myself. It was totally random. The brain just went boom, and you know what a delicate organ that is.
Oh, yeah.
I've lost some vision now. I have epilepsy and I take medication for that. And I haven't driven since 2016. I'm not allowed to drive. So you recalibrate when you hit something like that. What's important? And it was at that point that I had to say no to a lot of things. It took me a while, but I got back into the game, but it's a very different game. I was kind of like you, asked to speak at a lot of conferences, got a lot of stage time. You're traveling all over. And there's a lot of ego in that.
Yeah.
But it pays its price. I mean, you've built a wonderful empire, but you begin to think, is this all there is? And is this what I'm destined to do? I had to say no to the bankers and the lawyers and everyone else, and I went all out for accountants. And in 2016, I started my podcast because I just wanted to get to know who were the influencers in this space. And I start to come across the Jason Bloomers of the world and think, wow, these guys are the real deal and more important than me. But gradually, as you'll appreciate, you start to interview a lot of smart people and you become smart yourself because you get all that perspective and all that insight, which allows you then to speak with some authority into the space.
Yeah. Well, it's pretty cool. There was a point at time you had to choose your path. Sounds like you were doing a lot of brand management or network teaching and training with bankers, lawyers, accountants, and you had to lean in somewhere, which is kind of the risks we take, right? If we try to do valuable things, we have to go pick somewhere in a market to go into very deeply to become that expert. I mean, are you glad you did accountants, or do you wish you would have picked the lawyers? But nobody likes lawyers, so of course you didn't want to do that.
We have a phrase in the UK. I don't know if let's get political for a moment. You look at Biden or Trump.
Yeah.
And,
oh boy.
And we've got two lousy candidates here. We just finished an election. But we have a phrase that says, two cheeks are the same ass. In other words, there's nothing to choose between them. So you look at accountants, you look at lawyers. I went for accountants. I had one big firm that were really loyal with me throughout my rehab that I was doing a big business development program for. So I stuck with them. But it could easily have been lawyers, and it would have been probably very similar. Accountants are a little bit more privileged in that they don't have to kill what they eat and go out and kill again. They've got monthly recurring income, and they perhaps take that for granted. But with a lawyer, you do a piece of work, and generally that's not retained, or you don't get that every month, every year. So they have certain problems. I do find, though, that lawyers tend to be a little bit more open to being coachable on things like winning business and marketing themselves.
Interesting.
Because they know they have to.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, that's interesting. When you get into a certain profession, you find what they're like. And I think we've found the same thing about the accounting profession. It is a profession of people who care a lot about their clients. Sometimes they let clients run over them because of that. But they do get a little bit lazy on the biz dev, marketing, positioning, sales side, because it is a recurring model. And I think we do take that for granted. And so if you have a profession that really has a lot of its own recurring money coming in, why would you pitch, marketing or niching or positioning to set yourself apart if you're just going to, if the money's just going to come in? I mean, what's kind of the value ultimately?
Well, there's a couple of things in what you're saying there. Let's establish that there are certain things in the accounting world that are discretionary. Winning business, being a rainmaker, going out there, bringing in clients, that's not for everyone. And you don't have to do it to be successful. And to that point, how many firms do you know that are not busy, that are not overrun with clients and overrun with work? We could argue whether it's the right kind of work, and the right kind of clients, and whether they're pricing that right. We could talk about that. But they're not short of demand because it's a service that's mandated by law. Everybody needs an accountant, an audit, a tax return. So that's not going away. But it does make them a little bit complacent, Jason, that they think, well, why should I go out and win work? The answer to why you should develop those skills is you can win work on your terms with your kind of clients, with your kind of the work that you want to win and really position yourself well. And these days, we could go over this, but I've got 5 skills and attributes that I think a modern day CPA should have to stay relevant and competitive.
Oh, I'd love to hear those.
Do you want to run through those real quick?
Yeah, I'd love to hear that. That'd be great.
Let me hit you with my 5 and see if you want to add any to those 5, because you're in this game. You're on the bleeding edge of it. But first is technical skills. So you've got to be good. You've got to know your tax law. You've got to do that to get in the game. So that's a given. Your qualifications. Second is technological skills. So we're finding these days, you'll talk about this a lot, where you need to know more than how to turn a computer on and off. There's so many apps out there. The average accounting firm will have 100, 150 apps, platforms, software products, tech solutions. They've got to get all of those talking. And you've not just got to know those, but be able to advise your clients on what they should choose in their tech stack and everything else. So whilst we're not asking accountants to become coders and programmers, they do need to be tech savvy now. And
totally agree.
AI and ChatGPT and everything else, we could hear that. So you get those two, you start to become very competitive, very relevant. But more than that, the third one is commercial acumen, business awareness. As we move into that advisory realm, the cash realm, you're great at this. You need to be looking forward and not historically, and you need to be able to be so business aware that you think like an entrepreneur, you think like a business owner, and you tell me as your client what's coming up and what risks I should be mitigating and how to advise me on building my business. Yeah. And not all accountants are good at that. So you've got to read well, you've got to understand business and be really entrepreneurially aware. So that's a third skill I think they need to stay in the game. The fourth is people skills. You lead an empire, you lead a team, you put out great content. You don't do that alone. No. You might be the face of it. Yeah. So you've got to persuade, you've got to present, you've got to negotiate, you've got to influence, you've got to price properly. These are delicate conversations often. Mm-hmm. And accountants, as a breed, they're not particularly socially aware and socially confident, but you're dealing with people that are emotional, complex creatures. They're not binary like accounting. Right. It's not right or wrong. It's not black and white. Right. They're super unpredictable people. So as soon as you put accountants with people and not with spreadsheets, you start to rub up against some problems. So developing people skills is the fourth one. And then the fifth one I would say is selling skills. Now, by this, I mean, you're any kind of leader manager, you've got to sell a vision. You've got to sell a program. You've got to sell a tech adoption. Yeah. You've got to sell a course of action. You've got to sell a culture. You've got to sell an idea, an opinion, whatever it is. And for that, you need a certain skill set of leadership and just selling the dream. You've got to sell your firm as an employer of choice in today's talent shortage. Yeah. You've got to sell your podcast as a go-to podcast. And your firm as a go-to firm. So they would be my five to say, if you really want to be up there and relevant and competitive, that's what you need to stay in the game.
I love those.
Do you want to reflect on that or add any?
Yeah, no. I mean, those are key. I mean, those are key. The one about people, I think the fourth one really falls a lot into the bucket of leadership. It feels like to me, which is probably a lot of what you talk about, teach about. You're in that category of leadership, especially when you're kind of a thought leader, right? You're kind of teaching a lot of that, and that's one of the most challenging. We learned, a long time ago. It's hard to be a leader. It's hard to even self-assess yourself as a leader. And when you put leadership teams in place, then you got to teach other people to be leaders. And that it gets even harder. It's teaching other people how to lead other people when you struggle with it yourself. So I think leadership is so key, and I think you're right. The accounting profession really struggles with that because leadership is all about the care of the humans that work for you. That drive great culture, that drive great firms, and all of that, supports great technical services. The thing we get into business to do in the first place. So leadership is one of the big ones we teach in a lot of our courses, and that's kind of what I honed in on. So I love, Rob, as we're talking about leadership. What is there more you would like to teach about leadership? As you do this already, you lead people in groups in leadership. Are there skills that are kind of not being taught that need to be taught, or gaps in the skill set of leaders of firms maybe?
That's such a great question. I've done a series on my own podcast called The Future of Accounting. You featured on this, and we interviewed people to talk about the brand of accounting.
Yeah, nice.
And how attractive that is to the younger profession. We know about the talent shortage, but less and less people are taking accounting degrees and accounting majors. Mm-hmm. We know that 75% of CPAs are at or close to retirement age. And even people leaching out of accounting, they're coming out of the game at various levels to go into tech and industry and business and do their own thing. So we do have a problem with the value proposition of accounting. I guess if I wanted to teach anything, it would to have us be better storytellers of what we do as accountants. We don't tell that story very well. We don't weave a strong narrative. What do you do? I'm a CPA. Yeah. And that doesn't help. And the currency of influence. I think influence is a currency. It gets things done. It gets things bought. It opens doors for you. It persuades people. It creates a narrative. We could all work on our influence skills. And goodness, as a leader, you need to chart a course, don't you? You do this a lot better than me. I don't specifically teach on leadership, but you guys are world class at this. In leading a firm and bringing a team with you with a vision, you need influence because that gets the job done. Yeah. So we could then talk about how you create influence. There are many different ways to be influential. But the point is that even the most introverted person will influence thousands of people in their lifetimes. And if we've got to sell a firm, a culture, a job, a project, a profession, a career in public accounting, then we've got to have influence. And to your point, we've got to be great leaders. And a lot of people take that for granted. Back in the day, you chose accounting as a job for life and it was safe. But these days, people have so many choices. And why should I be an accountant when I could be a lawyer and graduate and earn 30% more as a starting salary? Let's play with that for a moment.
Yeah. Well, so, it's hard. It is hard. Our profession is going through hard things. And I guess just to document this, it is somewhat generational, right? In the U.S., we are seeing this baby boomer generation kind of retire and, the labor force is not filling in. I guess it's the same in the UK, right? It's very similar. So we all went through the World War II at the same time. So I imagine the baby boomer generation is there. I don't know if that's how y'all refer to it, but there's an exit of older people out of the profession and we need to replace them with younger people and there's just not the replacement. And so I think even now that really supports a lot of what you do, which is even more so people, the firm leaders who stand out will move way ahead of the other firm leaders because we're not getting a lot of maybe the strongest candidates into the profession. I don't know if that's true. I don't know if I should say that, but I don't know.
We're speaking about succession here. Do you see the partnership model is failing insofar as for these baby boomers to get out, they need somebody to pay off their equity pot, however you want to phrase that. And this young generation look at the partnership model and say, do I want to throw a few $100,000 into that pot in the hope of being partner or getting a payout at the end of the day? No, sir, I do not. Nope. So it means it's difficult for these boomers to move on and out. So that creates a bottleneck at the top because they can't leave till private equity comes in and pays them off or something else magical happens or they sell that firm. And so the people are not coming through. And a lot of people are looking at the leadership roles and the responsibility that comes with it and saying, well, I don't want that. I want a life. I want good mental health.
Yeah.
I want quality of life. You can pay me more, but that's not a game I want to play. So changes are afoot. As Sherlock Holmes would always say, the game is afoot.
Yeah, that's right.
And I run a podcast called Accounting Talent with a guy called Jeff Phillips from Accounting Fly.
Mm-hmm. I know Jeff really well.
He also owns Going Concern, which is a really radical news outlet for the accounting profession. And he has this lovely phrase. He says, the war for talent is over and the talent won.
Yeah. That's where we are right now for sure.
Yeah. We did a podcast series just recently. I think you were on that one as well, Jason. We asked 110 people the same 5 questions.
Yeah.
And the first question was, will the next generation of accountants be any different to their predecessors? Mm. And the overwhelming answer was yes, they will be. They're much more tech savvy. Yeah. They're much less tolerant of the traditional way of doing things, and they will push back. And if you squeeze them too hard, they'll slip away and do their own thing. And in so many ways, the game is changing. The tech is changing. So we've got a whole new world coming up. The question is the profession equipped to deal with it? And are the leaders right now equipped to hold the younger generation by the hand and say, this is the way, walk in it, come with us.
Yeah. Well, I think that's maybe what you and I get to do, right? We've got a little experience now, and we get to kind of lead the way and talk about leadership and, challenge people in ways that, as they move through generations too and grow in their leadership skills, they're going to need somebody to kind of mentor them through that process. So,
do you fear for the future of the profession, Jason, or does it excite you with what you see coming up?
No, it's very, very exciting. It is. Yeah? It is.
You're bullish about it.
Yeah, it is really, really exciting. I think obviously there's a lot of fear talk. People speak in fearful ways about the future and labor, but creative entrepreneurs will figure their way through that. And so I know I think it's just a great profession. And I think it's not going away. I think AI is just going to be an amazing tool for us, just like all the other cloud products that we all feared, a decade ago. AI is just going to be another great tool that show off how awesome we are as a profession. It's not a profession that will go away. It's needed technically. So that technicality of what we do will never go away. And we just got to navigate our way through it. We've navigated through a lot of different things. So I've been in the profession for 30 years now. So I've been through a lot of those navigations, and we just keep figuring it out. And I think we will. And I hope younger people hear that and go, well, if that's true, I want to get in on this. And I think it's a great profession to get in. I mean, how do you feel kind of about the future? I'm sure you talk about it a lot.
For sure, I do. I care about it. And you made the point earlier, accountants are caring people. Particularly throughout the pandemic, we saw how they were not just advisors. They were friends. They were counselors. They were therapists. They were shoulders to cry on.
Right.
They were keeping the lights on for businesses, and they really showed an empathetic side. But I'm wary of a profession that maintains relevance by virtue of being mandated. Everyone needs accountants, so we don't really have to do anything about the brand because we're always going to be there.
Yeah, true.
People can't say no to accountants. That's a dangerous place to be in because that breeds complacency. There is a responsibility of every. I asked some heads of the AI CPA recently. I said, who is responsible for the brand of accounting? And they said everyone is. And I said, well, look, here's the problem with everyone being responsible. It's like global warming. If you think everyone's responsible, you think everybody else is going to do it.
That's true.
So we do fall to the governing bodies, the regulatory societies, the professional associations to fly a flag for the profession. And to what degree they do that is debatable, but they know there's a responsibility there to tell a good story. Yeah. But individually, down to the people like you and I as influencers and experts, and the practitioners themselves, they need to be saying, look, this is a great game. We're not going to chain you to a desk for 10 years in a dark room and an Excel spreadsheet in the hope that you might make partner and a ton of money.
That's right.
This is an exciting game. It's interesting work. The tech, you're making a difference. You're changing lives. And I don't think we tell that story enough.
No, it's true, though. We do. We try to tell our team, one thing we've chosen in our firm is to be an entrepreneurial support firm. So we work only with businesses, not necessarily individuals. And so we tell them we're running into entrepreneurs who are dealing with hard things in their life. So when they're struggling, we've got to notice their emotion, their fear, and we're here to work on their accounting and their financial systems, but just they're freaking out too sometimes. And so they're going to behave poorly, and they need us to lead them. They need us to challenge them, get in their face sometimes. And
but here's my follow-up to that.
To do that.
Here's my follow-up to that, Jason. Are we asking too much of the accountants coming through? Because back in the day, I needed to do double entry bookkeeping and I was good to go. Do a little bit of CPE, keep on top of the tax laws. But now you're asking me to be a coach, a mentor, a therapist, a counselor. I've got to recognize emotions and fears and life changes. And then you're asking me to conquer AI and become a real technological expert and almost a geek and a nerd. And then you're asking me to be a leader. So now I've got to develop all of that skill set of persuading and presenting. And then you're asking me to win business. So I've got to learn networking now and asking for referrals. And are we asking too much of these people coming through to say, you can't just be good at accounting. There's a whole lot more. Otherwise, you're not going to make it.
Yeah. Well, it is. I think a lot of those things are true for the owners. The owners sign up for a lot to put on their plate. But of course, as we know, owners do need accountants that just actually go do accounting. We need a full force of people that do that too. So thankfully, some of that we don't need to ask, everybody. But I have some other questions about AIR I want to get to. But let me take a quick sponsor break real quick, and we'll be right back. Are you tired of grappling with inventory management complexities? Designed for QuickBooks Online, SOS Inventory ensures seamless synchronization of precise tracking of inventory at all stages, empowering you with unparalleled accuracy. So with integration spanning Shopify, UPS, BigCommerce, PayPal, and more, SOS Inventory can streamline your processes effortlessly. So join the global network of satisfied users spanning 60-plus countries now. Begin your risk-free 2-week trial today at live.sosinventory.com/trial. And don't forget to use promo code THRIVE for a 10% discount on your first 6 months of subscription service. Explore the wide selection of features at sosinventory.com and revolutionize your accounting practice. All right, we're back. Rob, I want to ask you something about AIR, Accounting Influencers Roundtable. You call it a door opening club, which I love, and it's a market intel sharing network. That's what you say on the website, which is really pretty cool. I love that. I love that language. I think I've heard that language a long time ago. Just opening doors for people. A lot about sharing, and that seems to be your heart. So it's a very particular part of networking, right? Sharing, not taking it all for myself. Door opening club, which is you building a place where other people meet other people. So you're a big give somebody's name to a whole bunch of other people kind of thing. Is that networking? Like, is that networking to let other people meet other people because you connected them?
The short answer is yes, but just to qualify what AIR is, this is not a group of accountants. We are a community of people that sell to and through accountants. So just to give you some context on that, accountants are the second most sold to profession in the world. What do you think the first is? Doctors.
Doctors. I was going to say medical profession.
Yeah. Every pharmaceutical company wants a conversation with a doctor. And we know why that is.
Yeah.
Buy this.
Sure.
But similarly, accountants, every software provider, every coach, consultant, trainer, everybody wants a conversation with an accountant because they are the gateway to businesses.
Interesting. Yeah.
Whether they're selling directly to the accountant, and there's a million pieces of software out there that want to do that, or selling through the accountant and getting that accountant to be an introducer, an affiliate, an advocate, a referrer to their business clients. So accountants are really put upon. And you know how aggressive the vendors are. You know the events out there. You've spoken at many of them.
Okay.
So AIR is a community of people that serve the accounting profession. And how are they going to reach those accountants? They can do it with a lot of money. You can advertise at the Super Bowl,
right?
Intuit, QuickBooks have the depth of pocket to do that.
Right.
It costs you millions, but you can reach. Or you can do it organically, which will cost you less money but more time. So you start to put thought leadership out there as a vendor, as a provider, and position yourself as the expert and having the solutions to the problems. But that takes a long time, and there's a lot of noise and there's a lot of hype, and it's difficult for accountants to understand the difference between the good and the great. You know so many people, Jason, where it's just bull, it's hype, they regurgitate, they're not the real deal. It's about fans and followers. It's not about good content and value. But the third way to do it is with strategic partnerships. If you want to reach accountants who we know are being hit all the time with phone calls and email campaigns and the like, is to say, who else has an audience of accountants? Who else is working with accountants? Who else has an email database, an audience, a community, a customer base? So AIR brings those people together to say, look, let's co-create some content together. Let's run a campaign together. Let's help one another. Let's open doors for one another. I'm working with this firm, with this network. Do you know anybody there? So we serve to get a better message to more of the right kind of accountants for our membership. That's the networking side of it.
Yeah.
And strategic partnerships is a great, to finish this, it's a great time machine because it just gets you where you want to go a little bit faster without the huge spend and without the huge time backlog of trying to be that thought leader and expert.
Yeah, because that's a lot of work.
The
thought leadership you do, it's a ton of work. And sometimes you're on the other side of a microphone going, is anybody listening to me? You try to push, we try to push those thoughts out of our brains every time we're doing podcasts and webinars. But networking's changed. When you and I started, it was you had to go to some local club and shake hands with people, and it's
that was old school, wasn't it?
That's
Jason?
old school.
Yeah, business cards. Remember them?
Oh, I mean, yeah. When I first got in here, I put on the suit and I'd go I knocked on doors and handed out business cards. Is how I did it, which was so weird. Now, if I did that, people would be like, "Are you a freak? What are you doing coming up in my business like this?" It was so different. But so networking is now online, or can you still do it old school? I mean, we still want to meet people, right? What's the difference and what's more valuable?
That's such a great question. There is a cohort of people that are still old school that say, I want to look in the whites of somebody's eyes. I don't mind traveling. I want to shake somebody's hand. But you and I both know that the generation of entrepreneurs, business owners coming through, they don't need that. They don't want an old school accountant with a tie and shirt to come and meet them at their offices.
That's right.
You've bought so many services where you've never met the person. You've never certainly been in a room with them. And this is the generation we've got now. They are an online digital generation. They don't need to meet you. They don't need to see a business card. They will go on recommendation. They'll go on what the community thinks. They'll go on their own intel and the due diligence of researching you online and on social, and they will make, hopefully, smart decisions. So if you're thinking, I want to still talk to people, well, that's going to fail because a lot of them don't want to talk to you. And you haven't got the time to jump on a plane or get in your car and drive 2 or 3 hours to see a client or a prospect that might not sign up with you. So yeah, the game has changed. And if you want to expand your network more, there are different ways to do it now than we did before. Do you remember those Rolodexes and those little black books?
Yep.
And the shoebox of business cards, and people said, "Do you know, great?" And you go through your cards and you say, "Wait a minute, I met that guy a few weeks ago at that mixer."
That's right. Yeah, you felt so cool when your card book was so full. You like flop it over on your desk and look through all the cards. It was
you
so
were the
cool.
guy.
Yeah.
But here's the other thing: if you know your own cell phone number, you're unusual. If you know your wife's cell phone number, you're unusual because. We don't store that stuff anymore. You go straight to a database, an app, a contact base, a CRM, a LinkedIn, and you say, right, who do I know and who do I need to know? And it's all done in the cloud now.
Yeah, yeah. Well, as we wrap up here, I want to ask you, I think some of the things that support networking, and we've kind of referenced this already, but of course your book is on branding, reputation and brand. These are the things you do, you write about. Show me your book there.
Exhibit A right there.
Exhibit A, yeah. So tell me how that supports networking. And of course, obviously you're writing about reputation and brand because you're trying to help people stand out now, which is kind of what we have to do in this world. So why reputation and brand? Why did you write about that? Why is that important?
Well, let's give you a little model here that might help. It's a wonderful question. Your network is who you know, and your reputation is who knows you.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
So that's a nice way to think about it. But another way to think about it is if you think of 3 circles, so an inner circle is your character, your values, the stuff that you stand for, the stuff that you're really good at. And then the circle outside that is your personal brand. So that's all the outward manifestations of what's on the inside. So every time you write something, that reflects your thoughts and your values. Every time you speak, every time you the clothes you wear, the car you drive, your backdrop in a Zoom call or a meeting like that, it all is your personal brand. It's all the outward manifestations of everything you stand for and everything you're good at. The final outside circle is your reputation, which is what people think or do or feel or say when they come into contact with you or any of your personal branding assets. So they start to form opinions and views and interpretations. And that reputation is not totally controlled by you. I know people that would love you for wearing a tie and people that would hate you for wearing a tie. Yeah. That's not your fault.
Yeah.
The perception is with other people. But I guess my message, and it is in the book, it's a career playbook, if you like, to stand out. But building a network's part of it. But being a bit more intentional with your personal brand. To say, look, you could leave it by default to think I'll do a good job and people will think well of me. Yeah. But you can do a lot better than that. There's a lot more you could be intentional with to build a formidable reputation so that you are the standout choice for whatever you do. And maybe for some of your private community, we could go through a couple of tips there on how they might realize that.
Yeah. Well, as we wrap up, that's what I want to do. So if people join our Thrival community, you get to hear some private content. And so we're going to go off air and I'm going to ask Rob some of those tips very specifically about reputation and brand for our Thrival community. So Rob, thanks for being on the show. And how do people find you online? Where should they go and get the book?
The go-to place for most accountants these days online is LinkedIn. And that is the case with me. It's where I'm most active and responsive. And probably when most accountants are, we wouldn't say Instagram or TikTok or Facebook generally. People lurk on there a little bit. But yeah, if they search Rob Brown on LinkedIn, and I'm happy to have a conversation. And there's one more thing I'd mention too, Jason, if I may, is that whilst reputation is the book, and it's an important topic, the thing that really stokes me these days is I work with a couple of accounting firms to help them tell their stories about why they're a great place to work. So I interview their people and say, why did you join this firm? Why have you stayed at this firm?
Yeah.
Why have you resisted the temptation to go somewhere else? And instead of just putting on your website about us and about our people, I give them video stories, authentic, personality-led stories from their own people to say, this is a great place and here's why. And here's why I love the culture. And here's why you should come talk to us. So that's my crusade for this final season of my life, to say if we can help a few firms really double down on the video side of things virtually, not a big Hollywood film crew, lights, camera, action, auto cue, makeup, but just like you and I are talking here virtually, to say, tell me why you love it there. Tell me why it's fun. Tell me why you've stayed. Those are great questions that accounting firms as brands don't tell very well.
I love it. Very cool. Well, cool. Well, Rob Brown, thank you for being on the Thrivecast. It's great to hear your thoughts and your wisdom. And thank you for, piping yourself all the way from Nottingham, UK.
Well, here's a little tip. We don't pronounce the H, so it's Nottingham.
Not you British people. Man.
Nottingham and Birmingham and things like that. So we don't say the Birmingham and Nottingham. Otherwise, we know that you're American and you ain't from around here. But it's been an absolute blast, Jason. And it's great to chat with somebody that's equally passionate about the wonderful profession that is accounting.
We are. Thanks for joining us on the Thrivecast, Rob. We'll see you.